Average score. Actually doing average score or just not?
That's good. Yep.
No, sir. She's sick.
We want to call this workshop order. Today is August the 22nd, 2023. Today is August the 22nd, 2023. We begin this budget workshop. You or Morgan want to start us off?
Yes, sir. Tonight is the nonprofit discussion.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone received your packet on nonprofits. And tonight is discussion on those. Councilwoman Havlin does not want to be here tonight. I do have for discussion purposes, something she emailed me this morning to share with the council. And it is for discussion purposes. I recommend the council not contribute to any not-for-profits in 24. Unstable financial condition of the city, the need to borrow and low reserves suggest that it would be unwise for us to donate. So I want to share that with the council. She sent it to me. So however the council would like to handle it, if they want to discuss the applications, the funding, they would like anyone here to just with some of the organizations that applied, and that will be your call to.
Now, we were still talking about a figure of around $30,000 overall.
The budget currently has 30,000 set aside in it.
And I mean, you may not be very, real clear on where we are down to the dollar amount, but I think it's been a number of years we knew that we weren't in real trouble. I don't know what your assessment is of where we stand. Is that you feel like a threat to us to deal out $30,000?
So the budget's currently balanced at the 30,000.
Okay.
For the nonprofits, it's the council's discretion if they want to increase it based on the amount that's actually been requested this year is 51,000.
Okay.
Just to be clear, also the city does have a reserve account,
Mm-hmm.
so we're not without reserves. So we do have reserves in the bank.
Okay. Yeah. And into that general, I guess, desire of hers is to get the rest of the council have any comments on the overall, what we're trying to do here with the nonprofit.
My comment would be that we fund the Walton County Athletic League, the DeFuniak Little League, the Women's Club, and the fair. That would be my comment.
And when is that in equal increments
Or
or?
whatever they requested. So I believe all of them, but the Women's Club only requested, I believe it was $700. But the Athletic League and the Little League both requested $5,000, and the fair requested $5,000. So that would be $15,700 in expenditure. And I said that's what we're funding. Leave it at that.
Okay. Any of the rest of you have some ideas there? Any different?
Mr. Mayor,
Go ahead.
she,
Yeah, come
no
on.
comment.
Good afternoon, my name is Katie Dowling, I'm with the Matrix Community Outreach Center. So I just want,
Okay.
Todd, if you don't mind me asking, I mean, what's your thought process on making that determination?
My thought process is that we were focused on youth-oriented activities, and the athletic league and the Little League are obviously fit within that category, and then the other two are somewhat aligned with that and what they do with the trick or treat, the parades, and obviously the fair. So that's where I'm focusing.
So you don't consider our homeless children in Walton County who are referred to as, let me remind everybody, these are not people that walk in on the street to me at the Matrix and say, hey, we need services. This is a partnership that's been in existence with the school district since 2012. And they refer all of the children that we service through the Gen Next program, which was what we applicated to you guys for, requesting the $5,000. And in that, we noted to you guys that I believe last year alone, it was 240 children that were recommended to us from the school district to provide life-sustaining services. So for me, I just want to make sure that you guys understand what it is we do, and the support that we get is minimal for those kinds of projects. We depend on what the city provides us with. And I know to you guys, you're thinking that's $5,000 and how much is that in the big scheme of things? But for us, every little bit counts. And if you divide that up over the 240 children just from Walton County alone last year, that's less than $20 a kid. That's $20 a kid. So for me, I just want to make sure that as you guys are making these determinations, I promise you, I have 4 children that have grown up in this community. So I know how important Little League is. All of my kids were athletic. They played. My children still to this day play in everything. And I understand the value of that. But those are also parents who, like myself, can somewhat afford to pay for their children. We're talking about providing for 240 children who are deemed homeless by the Walton County School District, needing the assistance that we're asking you guys to assist us with. There's not money out there that we can just go and get that's going to make up the difference in those funds. So I would just sincerely ask, we've been doing this, and I know you guys, it's not your job to support local nonprofits, but it is your job to help take care of your community. And these children are the people who will grow up to be you guys when you're no longer here. They are our future. They're our leaders. And if we don't invest in them and show them the worth that they have now, that cycle can't be broken. It's our job, I believe, to do that. So I would sincerely ask that you guys consider what it is that you're funding before making a final decision on that.
How many of those 241 are in DeFuniak Springs?
In DeFuniak Springs,
The majority of them are from this area.
I mean, I can provide, if the city wants that, we have to provide a report at the end of the year, and I apologize that I don't have that number in my head, but it ranges. I can tell you this, that the majority of the population is here in Freeport and Paxton.
I'd be interested in what is in DeFuniak, not what's in Paxton.
I understand that. Yeah. But I can assure you, I can provide you with that. And I'm not being funny, we can make an attempt to try and pull it up on my phone if you'll give me time to do that. But it's broke out by schools, so it's not by city. So it's like Walton Middle School, Walton High School, Mossy Head Elementary, West DeFuniak. It's broke up by schools, but we can calculate it out to see how many of those. And I'm assuming that you don't want to consider Mossy Head in that.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So
So just as a discussion, so I'll just talk through the ones I had at the top was, I didn't have the women's club on there. I appreciate the parade, but I didn't have that one as high. Now, since it's a lesser amount, what we did in the past is we rolled in something like that because it was a lesser amount. But I did have all the, the fair, the athletic league, the leagues, basically. I actually had boys and girls in my top 5, and I had the league just outside of it. But I did have Matrix as my number 1 because of the critical impact and the intense need that we see. I mean, the numbers that you see, especially during the holidays, it becomes obvious to the community because that's when it's visible. We see the trees with the names on them, which are part of that program, and we see the list of names from when you go and you pick them up for the needs in terms of Christmas gifts, and you realize just how big it is. And when I talk to my kids and we're looking at the number 1 high school in the South End. Now this is the South End, but just to show that it's not just here, there's homeless kids that are going to the top high school in the state of Florida, and not just underhoused or hungry. I mean, because we have the backpack program as well, but homeless. So I see that one as a huge need, and there is an intense focus on youth that I see with the Matrix. Now, again, it's not to say that anyone has to agree with that. And in terms of government, the more time I spend here, the more I see that, it's not about bringing in certain types of things, but it's about providing services for youth. It's not about trying to do a bowling alley, but it is about, healthy outdoor activity. Athletics are a big part of that. So I see all those as good things that we don't do on a day-to-day basis in terms of organizing leagues. But I do see the need of something like Matrix. Again, something that's going to be focused on an activity or one fundraiser, I'm less interested in, but something that's providing a year-round benefit, especially right in the heart of the community. I do like to see that one on there. And I think since we just had 4 on there, I think we do have room for that at least.
To a lot of these other organizations, I'd say as far as the percentile, probably the same situation with those who actually live in the city. The Little League, you don't have to live in the city of DeFuniak to be in the Little League. Matter of fact, probably a majority of them don't. But anyway, it's going to be a mixed bag all the way across with people in and out of the city.
What I think about what it bothered me, probably just not that, but if, the nonprofit, certain ones, they make money in more ways, and it's not like I think you should more or less go the route that the ones that don't have any money is not making money. So I've had that in mind from the start, but. So I agree what he said.
My thing with the Boys and Girls Club is they're a very well-funded organization. They got $710,000 from the state. Their total revenue, looking at their 990 on line 12, was $5.4 million for the current year. Just a very well-funded organization. I just was not swayed by what they put in their application as far as what they're going to do with that money and how it's going to be used locally. So I'm just not a fan of giving that money to that organization because they're extremely well-funded and they're getting a lot of state and federal funding as well.
I agree on that. I think that way.
So I mean, we could add in the matrix, and we would be at 22. I mean, if you want to drop women's club, we'd be at 20. Just fund those 4 organizations.
Go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is William Blanken, Post Commander, VFW Post 4437. On there, I guess it was put wrong. The Post 4437 is not for us. It's actually for the Boy Scout troops that we represent. We represent 3 different troops and Girl Scout troops, and what we do, we pay the utilities at the Boy Scout camp. That's what it's for. We do give money there to pay in utilities, repair the grounds. That's what we're asking for, it's just to pay the utilities. It's the water and electric, that's all we ask for. We cover a lot of different things as far as maintain the area. We do a lot with other VFWs and a lot of veterans groups around the area and Boy Scout situations. So that's where ours is at. So it's not for the VFW Post 4437 at all. Again, it says, no, we didn't make it on a day. We made it the day after. The reason being is I had to go through the Boy Scouts Association and get their bills. And it took time for me to get everything from them. By the time I got it, I was rushing around. I got it like the night before and I just had to get it back. And I dropped it off here the next day on the 2nd. I apologize for the next day. But that is what it's for. The VFW Post 4437, none of that money will ever go to our post at all. We go straight to the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts at the Boy Scout camp. That's off Boy Scout Road. That's where our money goes on that. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
My comment there is, as much as that pains me, I mean, Boy Scouts are Boy Scouts, but we did not fund the Walton Athletic League 1 year because they sent their stuff in late. We're not gonna fund one because it's in late. I think we need to be consistent with that enforcement. Now, I truly hate that, but we need to be consistent. If we have a deadline, we need to stick to it.
We did that in the past.
Okay. Is there other comments? Any of the organizations?
Is anybody from a Bed for Me present? Nope. I lean mainly the same way. I would have the matrix on there, the athletic league, little league, the women's club, and the fair as well.
I'll put you at $20,700.
Yes, sir.
I'm still not for the large ones like Matrix and those for the reason I said that they make, I don't think we should go toward the ones that actually don't have a lot of background, but to help them out. But that's one, but that's not the only one.
If we weren't doing larger groups, it wasn't the best application, but the Tivoli Historical Society is finally ready to open and trying to get their footing underneath them. That is certainly something to consider in terms of getting one started to fill in the void if we weren't doing a larger one. But I wouldn't only do that if we weren't doing a larger one.
I'm sorry, I wanted
Yes,
to
ma'am.
provide a copy of the number that you requested. Based on the report from the school, it's 107.
All right. All these nonprofits do some magnificent things for these kids and families. Are we shying away from anything above $2,200? In other words, we're not looking at possibly going, or 20,000, said Mark.
Four I was left with, the last count was Fair Athletic Club and Matrix and Women's Club.
We're gonna, so based on the number provided, that was 2140 would be the funding for the local kids. So we're gonna fund them at 5,000 or we're gonna fund them at 2,500? Would be my question.
Which one is that?
Matrix.
actually, I've only got 4 of them. What's the 5th one that's not the women's club? I have Matrix, Walton Fair, Athletic, Walton Athletic,
And Lily,
Little League. Okay, thank you.
what are your thoughts?
I would fund it at the 5. I would keep it at the 5. I mean, we budgeted 30.
I would say 5 on Matrix.
So we're just gonna do the 20,000, or we're gonna leave, or we're gonna include the women's club in there?
I'd include the women's club, but they're not asking, they're asking for $700.
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that.
So that's the Fair and Athletic Club, Matrix, Women's Club, and Little League. Correct.
5. Little League.
It's 5, yes, sir.
I'm fine with that.
I'm just wondering if we're going to do it, what we're going to do next year. I wasn't sure if we were going to talk about it at all. Do we think we should continue with these in the future?
What do you mean?
Funding for nonprofits? Or just consider it on a year-by-year basis?
I would just say we consider them on a year-by-year basis. If we, just like we did this year, we decided, are we gonna put 30,000 in the pot at the beginning of the budget cycle? Take it one year at a time. I mean, our all-time high was, what, a little over 60,000, or was it even higher than that?
Not at one point when I first started, it was over 100,000.
Yeah, we cut it from
But I think
60
that
to 30.
included the 2 agreements with, didn't include the EDA and the,
No, when we first came on, it was a bunch.
I knew it was a lot, but I thought that was also included. And, okay. All right, so you guys willing to work with that last number we gave Morgan? I think it was, what did it come out, 25,700 or something like that?
20,700.
20,700?
Yes, sir.
20700.
And that included, okay. All right.
Benefits funding for the DeFuniak Springs Little League at 5,000, the DeFuniak Springs Women's Club at 700, the Matrix Community Outreach at 5,000, Walton County Fair Association at 5,000, and Walton County Athletic at 5,000.
Okay. All right, I was thinking there was one more. All right. Well, I guess I'll be,
Was there anybody else here that represent
Yeah, I
any of
asked
the
him.
other ones?
was there any organizations there that want to say anything?
Oh, that's all.
Okay. Any other business we want to take care of in the budget?
I guess my question is, we've covered a lot of ground with the workshops. Are we in need of any additional workshops at this point? Because from my perspective, I don't think we are.
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
You have a requirement of so many. Are we covered?
Well, it's the budget hearings.
Mhm.
You have a requirement of so many budget hearings. You don't have to do any workshops if you don't want
All
to.
right.
Y'all can talk about them in one council meeting, and that's.
Okay.
So yeah, there's no actual mandatory requirement. It's just to the council's satisfaction.
Mhm.
The final budget workshop looks like it's set for the 29th. Is that just for y'all to bring everything back one last time and say, here's where we're at, Morgan?
The workshop,
It's the actual final hearing.
that's the budget hearing. So we got 2 hearings. So understand, if y'all don't do any more workshops, you're still going to have 2 formal budget hearings.
Okay.
Now, understand, those are generally pretty quick. We read the proposed budget, we read the taxable value, we read the rollback rate. I request motions to adopt the resolutions and the rollback rate. We can take public comment on those. but we do not go line by line in those. We don't get to the granular detail you've been doing in your workshops. That would be your front end workshops if you wish to have them.
I guess my only comment would be to provide the council with a little bit of flexibility if something comes up between now and then. I guess 2 requests would be, number one, we, obviously at this point, I think we've kind of wrapped everything up. So we get a final total budget that we can be sent that's kind of finalized.
Mhm.
And then maybe for the next couple of council meetings, we just have a general budget discussion item. Is that acceptable, Clay?
Of course.
If we wanted to discuss something related to the budget between now and our final budget hearings, we have that opportunity. It's just kind of a standing item between now and the final hearings.
I would do it for your next meeting and see where you stand. And then, of course, if something needs to be added on, you can add it on specific. I think the problem with the standing general budget item on each of these is you get into the how much are we revisiting meeting to meeting. I think if you have a budget and an item related to the additional workshops at your next meeting, that would be sufficient. And then you can always add it on, to the manager can add on if he needs to, but then it's not actually something where what I don't want to do is I don't want to get into publishing trim notices to the state and that total budget change by $1,000. And I know that doesn't sound like a lot when we're talking about the size of our budget. It matters if I publish that trim notice because the state's gonna wonder, was that a typo or did you get it right? Heaven forbid $100,000 or $1 million. So it would make life easier on all of us if we can keep relatively stuck once we get this done. So Morgan will give us these numbers and we'll dial it in.
Yeah, at this point, the only change that would be made to the budget, unless there's something specific that the council comes up with between now and then, is just changing the culture by decreasing the funding from 30,000 to the 20,700. All the other changes have been provided, and I have no problem running through what has changed from last budget meeting if you wanted me to do that real quick. But we've
I think just present it at the
I have
council
one item
meeting
to
as the final
discuss a
budget
little
number.
Okay, look, Beerbaum had one
I'll
more.
defer to them first.
All right, go ahead.
So, not sound like Clay, but just to be clear, are we going to, so if we do not have the budget workshop next Tuesday night, do I need to put that on the agenda to vote on not having that budget workshop?
Yes, I'd like us to set to have the final budget. Everybody talks about it. We're not going to motion anything,
Okay.
but we'll do a motion to cancel the remaining workshops
Monday,
because y'all said it.
Yes.
on Monday.
Yes.
Okay.
And so it'll be listed under the city managers.
Yes.
Mr. Beerbaum.
I just, refresh my memory, Mr. Parker or Morgan, on, I'd asked about some insurance stuff, and Morgan, you did provide me with some numbers here. Were we able to get any additional information on, are we able to selectively insure some buildings and maybe save a little bit of money? You know, have we kind of engaged the insurance agent on this to see if there's something we can save? Because, you know, $500,000, $538,000 in 2023, we're looking at almost $700,000 in 2024. If we were to just simply put that back in a dedicated insurance sinking fund, so to speak, I think we'd be better served with that than paying an insurance premium at this point. That's just my opinion. I know that's probably a little unconventional thinking, but and $700,000 just for, we hope, type of thing is a lot of money right now.
And I know we have 2 buildings that's going to be coming off. The sale of the old police department, that building will come off of there. Then it's whenever the old city hall sells, that building will come off of there. So we do have things that's going to drop off if we, I'm not sure what kind of money that will save us on there. But I mean, as far as I know, we can insure whatever we want to, as long as there's not a note attached to it. So,
Well, your self-insurance funds, or we're talking about just doing it by ourselves without anybody else
My
involved.
thought would either be do that or pare it back to only critical structures, say city hall, police department, fire department. Would be the only thing that we take out.
Fire department's not worth anything.
I agree.
I mean, just to be blunt,
I agree, 100% agree.
I would just have liability insurance, I wouldn't insure the building. We need
Right.
to replace it anyway.
Yeah, that's my thought, is, that's my exact thought, is are we insuring buildings that we're better off not insuring because it's just not worth paying the premium on?
I think there's some buildings that have exceeded their life expectancy, and we're not going to get any kind of coverage or payment from an insurance claim that's going to begin to do anything on some buildings. This building obviously is not one of those. I have some questions as to whether or not we can insure the library, and the Hall of Brotherhood probably can be insured, or probably can keep its insurance, but is the library insurable at its age and without any upgrades?
I'm not aware of the property insurance, what we hold on insurance. Lisa's always been involved in that. I think Kobe and city manager were working on a couple of things.
Okay.
So I don't know that, but Kobe's probably gonna go find it.
I think there's some that are worth looking at. I mean, certainly the fire station is, yeah.
Right.
Definitely not one that I would throw insurance money at. What are we going to get for it?
Well, and understand, I believe our premiums cover general liability also.
So we'd have to split it out.
Well,
Well, you're gonna have to ask, will they split it out? I would imagine FMIT is not going to, if you want my honest opinion. I do not believe FMIT will give us general liability coverage if we're self-insuring the building. I don't know that I'll be candid, I don't know that we truly meet the criteria for local government self-insurance fund, but we can explore it with FMIT if that's what the council directs. But I believe the standard still is 2 or more local governments have to have premiums in excess of 5 million to qualify.
So we're being compelled to spend 700,000?
Where you're being compelled to have
Indirectly.
insurance. As a local government, you're required to insure, be part of a self-insurance fund.
I'm just looking for options. $700,000 seems like a lot of money.
Just one little.
And we're through FMIT on all of that.
Clay, on one little building, you know, and all the talks I've had with anybody wanting to buy the old city hall property, none of them want the annex, you know. I don't know, you know,
Well, some of them do, that's not, I've been talking to some that do want that.
really? Well, hardly see it being worth insured, to tell you the truth, but, that's where I was going with that. Most of them would, if it was burned to the ground, they would see it as not much more valuable.
Well, before we cancel the insurance, I'd want to make sure that FMIT is going to extend general liability or risk liability
Mhm.
beyond it. Last thing we need is somebody driving off 331 and hitting the annex
Mhm.
and suing us. Well, I lost control of my car, but if your annex hadn't been sitting there, I wouldn't be paralyzed. And say, well,
Oh, yeah.
I can assure you we'll get the lawsuit.
Oh, yeah.
Now, do we defend it? Yes. Would I prefer FMIT to defend it and have the insurance coverage to resolve it if a claim was due to be paid? The insurance is there to pay. So that's the thing, one thing we'd have to check. That would be the one rub I would want us to make sure of is FMIT going to drop us from general liability as well?
Mhm.
This might have been part of a previous discussion, but has it been discussed yet just to have the city manager just do a review of what coverage we do have on what structures to evaluate if we're over covered on some? I mean, we can start there and just, I mean, I'm not sure if that's been discussed yet. So if it's been discussed, I'll shut up. But if it
It
hasn't,
wasn't discussed in detail. I mean, that was just thrown out there.
I'd start with that. I mean, just an internal audit to determine if we're overinsured on some properties or underinsured on others, and just make sure that we're paying for the proper amount of coverage first, and then take the next step in terms of what should. Yeah. Because some of the park structures,
Yes, they're doing the work of a fact. Same process. Their board will review things.
but I mean, some things like the park pavilions out here on 83 and 331, or 90 and 331, are we paying for any kind of coverage on the structures, or is it just liability?
Right.
Are they covering playground equipment that's not worth anything, or just the liability? What do we got on the piers on the lake? I mean, there's things might not even be covered. So there's just some things that may only have some liability coverage and don't have anything for the structure, and maybe we need it, and others that we maybe don't. So my recommendation would just be to start there, and then we can work towards that bigger conversation.
I think he's looking for another project.
Yes, sir.
I got plenty.
Cody's taking
Yeah.
it.
I can tell you that the airport is covered and the electronic stuff out there with gas pumps covered because we submitted numerous claims for lightning strikes. And it continues.
That's why our premium is so high.
So, trying to correct that.
Okay. Are we clear in regards to this meeting?
I still have something I would like to mention.
Okay,
to
go ahead.
the council. So, and I know Uriah Matthews is here. And I'm not going to put a plug in for Uriah per se, but I am. For the last, I've been here right at 6 months. I have a very good working relationship, I'd like to think, with Uriah Matthews. We communicate every day, every other day, multiple times a week on stuff to bring economic development into the city. It's an ongoing conversation of what can we do to bring economic development into the city. In order for us to prosper and grow at all, we're going to have economic development to do that. To have the funds to do what we need to do, we're going to have economic development to do that. And I know the city has traditionally funded economic development at a particular level. Morgan, what is that number that we have, or Uriah, what the number that we have funded economic development at?
Currently at 32,000 is what's in the budget.
At 32,000, that's what we put in the budget. I know Uriah he's given a presentation to the county commissioners, he's given a presentation to other 2 city municipalities. And he's asked for some increases in that. It's not that much, but and I've heard all of his presentations. I've heard his presentations at his own board, when he pitched it to them, and I've heard their responses. Mayor, you've heard them too, being on that board. So, I think I would like for him to explain what he's asking for, and for you the direction comes from you as to what we approve. For what the increase, there's a formula he has that he's used with the county and the other 2 city municipalities. And he wanted to use that same formula with the city based on population, I believe it is.
It's per capita calculation.
Yes. So, and I'll let him, I told him not to be long-winded, so I'll let him, if you would indulge me, to let him speak for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Uriah Matthews, you are. Thank you all for allowing me this time. Just to kind of come right out of the gate, one of those conversations I had with the mayor early on and coming up with the budget was the attention to detail on that budget and the mention of getting everybody on the even playing field of a per capita amount of contribution. The alliance is made up of the county, the city of Paxton, the city of DeFuniak Springs, and the city of Freeport. And we've got a really unique opportunity. This is the last council presentation. So before we get into the numbers, I do want to just kind of mention a few of the things that I've done since coming on board. One is just the general awareness and public awareness of this organization. So I have redone our website. We actually have some really detailed analytics now. So we're up to almost 7,000 views since the revision of that website, which happened in late February. We've got a LinkedIn presence. We're not that anybody's counting it, but we have more LinkedIn followers than our Walton County Tourism. So if that's saying anything, we're up to 141, and we just started that page. It is getting some engagement. We're at a 13% engagement rate, and you all have probably seen some of my email newsletters come out. So I've sent a few newsletters recently. I started that subscriber list with the revision of the website, and we're up to 387 subscribers on that list. In regards to community engagement, one of the things we did early on was I got interjected into the middle of a strategic plan that was being developed. And one of the things we wanted to make sure is that the community had really substantial input on that strategic plan. So we held 2 workshops. They were held at the Freeport Community Center that the county has down at their county building there on Highway 20. We got about 15 to 16 people in each one, which was capacity for the request. And for comparison, there was an attempt to do that prior in my tenure, and there was only 1 person that attended. So I consider that quite a bit of success. There are folks from the north end of the county to the south end of the county and everything in between. With leads, my job is to get out and diversify our economy and provide an opportunity for essentially importing wealth to our community with new businesses entering the market. So the way we do that is we can do that by reacting to leads that are brought to us by the state of Florida or our regional economic development partners. And then we can also do that by me going out and prospecting to potential economic development opportunities. So we have an open state of Florida lead right now. So that's the FLEDO lead open 1. That is a small manufacturer of approximately 30 folks. It's a 3-shift operation, and it's actually a company from Germany. So we're in the running for that. One of the interesting requirements is they needed 5,000 square feet of space to move into. I do not have 5,000 square feet of space. So I actually partnered I found a private sector property that was willing to put their property on hold for discussions of winning this bid. And that partner is actually at our Woodlawn Industrial Park. Hospital Network Service, you may have seen that HealthMark recently closed, quoted in the news. They used supporting data from the EDA. That was me. I developed those drive time charts to help them make that decision as an informed one. So I've actually outlined every hospital and medical outfit surrounding us and done 15 and 30-minute drive times to help anybody that's looking to put a hospital here be as informed as possible. I've got an item here listed as the unicorn. This is a prospecting opportunity that I've gone after. It is a single site opportunity that represents potential to bring $30 to $50 million in revenue and 200 jobs to the community. I can't talk about it in much more detail, but it is one that I went out and went after, just thinking it'd be a great fit for our community. Alliance member projects, I've been working with the mayor and Mr. Mike Barker regarding some interesting DFS infrastructure opportunities. Council member Sconiers has been in some of those meetings. And then we've also had some conversations regarding DeFuniak Springs Old City Hall property and some potential changes that we might do to that property to help increase its value proposition. And actually, there's a document here that if we can pass that around, that everybody can take a gander at. This is part of my strategic plan, asked that I get engaged in what's called ecotourism. On the ecotourism suggestion list from our strategic planning organization, they mentioned that we need to pursue this program that is put on by the Florida Trail Association called the Gateway Community Program. So this is one of the very first, what am I doing for the city of DeFuniak Springs? This is part of it. So this is going to come before you at a city council meeting after we flesh out some of the particulars on a staff level. What this does is this puts DeFuniak Springs, which is within a close proximity to the state of Florida, the Florida Trail, and it puts us on a list that then gets marketed and advertised to the Florida Trail goers, and we become what's called a gateway community. So there's web presence, marketing that goes along with that. The strategic planning organization gave me a timeline of a year to do that. It's before you in sort of a draft form for you to take a look at what the requirements are. And hopefully we'll have something done with the city soon. And it works out well because in March, they're going to have a very large annual event on the Florida Trail. And then we might be able to do something really neat in coordination with that being recognized by the Florida Trail Association as that gateway community. So the strategic plan, we've got three big corridors of areas to address. We've got agriculture and ecotourism. We've got defense and technology, and then commercial and industrial targets. That's really typical economic development. This morning, I was excited to have the commission schedule a first of its kind mission briefing from Eglin. So in working with Eglin, we've actually scheduled a mission briefing on September 6th for the 96th to come out and give us a fairly detailed mission briefing. So that'll be advertised soon. That will take place here in the DeFuniak Springs as well. The other item is in that strategic plan, and I can give you a full copy if you like, by the way. This is just a snippet from there. The strategic planning organization suggests that a staff of at least 4. I'm not going to accomplish that this year, but the goal is to get there. For comparison, in the Panhandle, Escambia County has 5 staff members with a $1.2 million budget. Santa Rosa has 3 staff members with an $800,000 budget. Okaloosa has 665 with 4 staff members. Bay County has 3 or 4 staff members with a $800,000 budget. And this year, if everything goes to plan, we'll get to about $400,000. And my goal is to get us to 3 staff members and squeeze it out as best I can. It'll allow us to do a lot of productive things for this community where, we're sort of in creation of this engine that I hope to create here. The investment request, just to kind of go over, on this page, if you'd like me to review the numbers with you. One of the challenges of the past is not having everybody on equal footing as far as their alliance, their share of contribution to the alliance. So taking some advice from the mayor, I worked hard to do that, and our board passed a per capita funding model. With that said, my full funding request was to get us all to $6.96 per person, based on our population released by the census. However, the county kind of set the pace here. They came in with an offer to fund at $4.64 based on their total amount. And so what I did there is I engaged with the city of Freeport and the city of Paxton, and they both engaged in the idea that we would fund that they would actually ask to fund at a higher level should the county wish to fund higher as well. So after I leave here, kind of having an idea of what we're going to be funding at, I think there was the mention of about $32,000. That would equate to that $4.95. If the county doesn't agree to that, then it would be right to fund at the county level of $4.64. To your point, getting everybody on equal footing. So I hope there's some attention, paid there. I'm working hard to try to make that happen. It's kind of an interesting conditional proposal. So if we match the county pledge, that comes to $30,300. If we match the Freeport and Paxton pledge, that brings us to $32,348. And that only happens if the county agrees to do the same. So we're all really coming together in an alliance fashion. The why, I'm excited to hear everybody talk about the kids. This is really part of it. So I had a really great meeting with Walton County School District recently, and they're on a level of planning that starts at 3rd grade. So they're looking at 3rd grade numbers, thinking, how do we plan for high school? That's really how we got to think about economic development. Where are the kids going to have a place to work? It's been said that our #1 export is our children. How do we keep them here? The economy helps us do that. So through open door collaboration, as Mr. Barker said, we're in constant contact. One of the interesting things is the board has recently adopted a direction to pursue a public-private partnership that would allow private funding to also come into the organization and bring us on par with some of our peers, and then staffing up. So that is the conclusion of my presentation. I'm here to answer any questions.
So if I could add to that, so basically what he said is if we go in at the same funding level that Paxton and Freeport used and the county did based on that formula, that would be about a $10,000 increase.
You're right. For
the city of DeFuniak. If we opt to do the additional amount, if the county chooses to up that, that would add another couple $1,000s to that. So if the county agrees to up their share, then Freeport and Paxton agree to up theirs. For us, if we upped ours, then it would be about a $12,000 increase instead of a $10,000 increase. So, and that's at the council's pleasure. I think we've budgeted, we have that worked in there that we can do that, but it's up to the council's discretion at that. I'm sure you're all glad to answer any questions.
He talked about equal footing. One thing, and of course, Clay has heard me romp on this for several years, because we were paying triple, quadruple what Freeport was. And finally, there's a formula here to treat everybody fairly. And so Freeport, I know that they were probably a little shocked.
They're increasing by 6 times their amount.
Yeah. So they, but anyhow, and there's just, one thing Uriah, he's brought some aggression we haven't seen, and I think some good business sense he's brought to us. We've been through in my 10.5 years, we've had an interim, and then he's been our third director. And it's been a step up each time. It's been a big step up, I believe, with Uriah. He doesn't let any grass grow under his feet, and he's very aggressive. And no doubt we're going to see some major changes just because of EDA. And there's a lot of things coming, but we got to stay in the game, and we need this organization. I think it will do us a tremendous amount of good as a city.
Thank you for those words, Mayor.
I got about 3 or 4 minutes before we close. Go ahead.
So with us updating our funding, it's a significant contribution to this organization. Business development is near and dear to my heart. As someone that owns a small business downtown, I've witnessed firsthand what proper business development does for a small community. I mean, look at Main Street 4 years ago compared to what it is today. It's night and day different. And what the Main Street Board is doing down there to bring economic development to that small strip of land down there has been phenomenal. But I'm very passionate about it as a small business owner. So my request to the council is to consider maybe shaking things up a little bit, and let's look at requesting that the mayor serve in the ex officio position on the Alliance Board, and then appointing one of us as a representative on that board as our seat there.
I would get a level of comfort with that, because I think it's important to be engaged and involved in the conversations. I just want to make sure that the priorities are being set by the city of DeFuniak Springs and by the council when appropriate. I do not want to see things veering off of our intended path, and I have some concerns about that. So as long as we can keep things on the right path and understand that it's the council that's making the direction on things like the airport and how that is proceeding, and how things like City Hall progress, I think that gives me a level of comfort.
I feel comfortable with that. The way it's the council that's actually setting the direction of what's occurring inside of the city, not really being pushed from outside. So,
Mr. Uriah, is that something that you could consider?
So that would be for my board. This comes at a time where we are, I have been tasked with redoing our bylaws. So I can take this into consideration. It's not something I had thought about, but I'd be happy to take that back. And I'd be happy to provide the on the 7th, I was planning on having 2 deliveries of bylaws. So this would be a third option. And I would probably have to discuss with them uniformity. We just talked about equal footing, right, from a investment standpoint. So I would want to make sure we have a discussion at the board level, at the EDA, on how we intend on having that uniformity across the board. So for example, you know, we have other mayors serving on the board as well.
Well,
And I
from,
just wanted-
from a uniformity standpoint, the other mayors have tie-breaking votes. They technically have a vote in their city processes. Our mayor, through the change in the charter, no longer has that tie-breaking vote. So giving a member of the council that has that voting capability equal footing and uniformity at your board level, I think would be appropriate. The other question that I have is this funding agreement, is this year to year, or is this a multi-year funding agreement?
If I'm not mistaken, we were in a transformational position in that it had previously been a 10-year funding agreement. So the idea here is after we get past agreeing on what the amount is, we would bring back another 10-year funding agreement. One thing that would be a little different this time is that we wouldn't worry about the decennial census. So that every 10 years, we would actually work on the July 1st updated numbers from the Census Bureau so that we get per capitas updated, because part of the reason we're funded unequally is we were using that 10-year census for Freeport when we know they had grown. So I think it'd be a 10-year to allow for some language there. And I totally hear what you're saying in regards to the differences between the cities. What I might ask for is perhaps a motion at your next city council meeting that I would then be able to take before my board as evidence of the desire of the alliance member, DeFuniak Springs. Is that fair?
It's at the close.
Yeah, I think we can do that. And I mean, obviously the intent is right now that everybody's going to regroup after the first year about what the per capita funding model is. I believe the biggest shift that Uriah is proposing is to go to a true per capita funding model. Now, right now, the agreements were in a 10-year funding model that then rotate effectively every 3 years is the way it was broken down. But there was a sweepings clause that was in effect every single year already with the cities, which made it little more than year to year when you got right down to it. If you choose not to budget, you choose not to budget for it. Anybody can pull out of the interlocals. So it is effectively year to year as it stands.
And that would continue?
Yeah, oh yes, absolutely. There's no interlocals are not something that are ever able to be binding to the extent that one party can't get out of it. You can only bind yourself. So
And
that
I
would be the
add,
function there.
to me, I think that's a valuable tool to incentivize the EDA to perform. I think in the 10-year funding model, the goal would be to present an expectation of funding that you can plan for, right?
Mhm.
So I can put that data in front of you as well.
Yeah, well, we're about out of time.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, real quick.
Go ahead.
One comment. I've had conversations with you, and I like the way that you have taken the EDA, and I am putting some faith and trust in you, but I do want to protect the city. So from that perspective, I would think that this board, the council should consider making sure that we're covered. I understand that we have the sweepings clause that effectively makes it year to year, but if you go away tomorrow and find another job at another EDA in New York City making $10 million a year, you know, and the EDA suddenly collapses, I'm not comfortable with that money just being swept up into some other entity somewhere that suddenly takes over leadership of it. So
Totally.
I want to make sure that that money is, at that point, comes back to us immediately.
That once the budget number's set on a per capita model, once everybody agrees that per capita is the way to go, regardless of the number, what would happen is an interlocal would come back to you before the end of this fiscal year that would then start the EDA's funding cycle consistent with the city's fiscal year on a year-to-year basis.
Well, and we need to talk about this a little more. We got another meeting, and I definitely want to talk about that because I want to know why. I don't know, Uriah, if you agree with this or not, but I've been probably one of the most aggressive members of that board for the last 10 years. And I don't know, me not having a vote here cripples me in any form or fashion. I would really like to know why you would like to have a councilman in that position other than the mayor. I don't think you guys have any clue what I've been involved in on a much larger level, most of which you can't even talk about. But it sounds like you guys want me to put me out in pasture and one of you guys step in. And if that's what's going on here, let's make it very clear. Very clear.
Actually, Mr. Beerbaum mentioned both being on.
He said me as an ex officio.
Still
Ex
on,
officio doesn't vote.
but still, again, the voice is what represents. So the voice is there to represent. I just want to, just for a point of clarity, I believe the intent was for the $495 per person.
32,000.
So
Yes. I
subject
just
to it
wanted to
going
make
back
sure.
to the county. That's what every other
Yeah.
city's done, is said they do the 495 contingent on the county coming up to that. If
Yeah.
not, they would default to that.
I just wanted to be clear. I didn't want it to be confusing.
All right, well, we need to adjourn this meeting so we can, workshop, so we can move on to our next meeting. Everybody all right? All right, this meeting's adjourned. This workshop's adjourned. We'll do a quick 5-minute break and then we'll start this next meeting.